Hi, I'm Dan Leonard in the East.
I'm George Whittam in the West.
And together we are East-West Audio Body Shop. Well, this week we've got a great show for you. Our special guest is Gabby Nistico from VoiceHunter. They specialize in imaging work and promo work, and she'll tell you how to get into that type of stuff.
I can't wait to hear what she has to say. I'm sure it's going to be really interesting. Processing pre or post? Should you process on the front end or the back end? I'll tell you why one is much more preferable to the other.
And dovetailing on that, I'm going to talk about the truth about normalization in my tip of the week. Plus, we have photos from viewers' studios. We want you to send yours in. And
bad audio of the week. Coming up next on East-West Audio Body Shop.
He's the voiceover studio engineer of the Stars in Los Angeles, California, a Virginia Tech grad with a knowledge of recording studios unmatched in his field. He's a voice actor from Buffalo, New York, with 30 years experience in recording studios and behind the mic. He solves people's home voiceover studio problems in the blink of an eye. Together, there's no studio problem they can't solve, and they'll do it for you tonight. Welcome to East-West Audio Body Shop. Now, live from a basement in Buffalo and an office in L.A., here are Dan Leonard and George Whittam.
I can't hear anything.
We're live, baby.
Are we?
Yes, we are.
I am hearing you, but why am I not hearing anything else? I'm not getting the audio feed here.
Well, if you can hear me, then we're live, baby.
All right. Well, that's good. Hi, I'm Dan Leonard in the East.
And George Whittam in the West.
And together we are
East-West Audio Body Shop.
Well, we're here for another week. And even though I can't hear the music or anything that's going on, who cares? It's the internet.
Yeah, it's just you guys. Who cares?
That's right.
That didn't come across too well, but
hey. That did not come across the way I'm sure you intended it. Right. Anyway, we've got a great show for you tonight. Otherwise, why would you show up?
Yeah.
You could be, I'm sure most of you are probably watching the Golden Globes and watching EWABS.
Yeah, on this TV over here.
Yes, we promise not to be quite as blue as Ricky Gervais tonight.
Sorry.
Yeah, but we'll, if you want us to, we will. Anyway, we've got our special guest tonight. We have another special guest tonight. We have Gabrielle Nistico, who will be joining us from VoiceHunter in Charlotte, North Carolina. They specialize in imaging work. So if you've ever been interested in getting into that line of work in the voice business, she's the lady to talk to. And VoiceHunter has a number of other interesting services that she'll talk to us about. I know you've got some stuff to talk about. I have my tip of the week. You challenged me. You said, oh, yeah, it's going to be real easy for you to do the Home Studio Masters tip of the week. But I warned you, I'm very competitive. You challenge me, it's going to get done.
Well, 2 for 2.
That's right. We'll see what happens here. Anyway, so I bet you had an interesting week.
Yeah, well, things are picking up this year. I'm really happy with the way the year is starting out. Usually Januaries are pretty scary for me, and we hit the ground running as soon as all the holiday crap was out of the way. Everybody was back home. We hit the ground running, so I can't complain. And one of the first clients that I got to connect with this year that I was excited about was Malcolm McDowell.
Ooh, and come here, my fellow droogies.
Yeah, one of the actors from one of the darkest films of the 20th century. But he's not afraid to take a crazy role. But now he's calmed down. He's living in Ojai and doing voiceover. So he's tired of driving down to the studio, which I don't blame him, because I drove there and it took me an hour and 45 minutes from Santa Monica to get there. And he's going to take a little room in the barn that was built for the dog, but the dog wouldn't stay in there. So he's going to put his voiceover booth in there.
Put the studio in
there.
Yeah.
So we'll be working on that in the next week or two. Very simple. What I found is working with actors, especially celebrity actors, is that they want it to be, they're not really that different from everybody else. They want it simple. Not. They don't want to have a lot of extra junk to deal with. They tend not to be very geeky. unless they're like, unless you got a Steve Martin who apparently is really into the stuff. But, most of them are not. And they just wanted they're just like you guys, just, a little wealthier, but they really just want the same thing. Simple, fast, easy. And actually, they don't often want to spend a whole lot of money either, because it's just, to them, it's such a minor part of their life. But I think once they realize that this minor part of their life is making them a lot of money, they might give it a little more energy, I would think, anyway. Sometimes I have to coerce them into spending a little more money on their studio, and it's like, come on, you guys, you're doing national commercials. Really? I think you can pony up. That's right.
Yeah. Now for them, and this dovetails nicely into your first subject tonight, because when you work with somebody like that, who like, I want to hit record and I want it to go somewhere.
Right.
You want to talk about front end processing. And I know a lot of people are like, when we say front end processing, I'm sure a lot of them are like, what the heck is he talking about?
Right. Pre-processing.
Lucy, explain.
All right. Well, there's two ways to process your audio. You can either do it pre, which is before it goes into the computer, or post, which is once it's been recorded in the computer. And that can be done either with a hardware device, like a compressor, channel strip type thing. It can actually be done in the computer if you're using a complicated software like Pro Tools that allows you to process in real time and then bus out to separate tracks and all that kind of stuff. Or post, which I tend to prefer for most everybody in VoiceOver. Now, the advantages of the two, the advantage of pre is the audio goes in processed. So as long as it's set correctly and the sound is the way you want it to be, the result that goes into the computer and onto the tape is basically ready to be delivered to the client. You might need to normalize or might not to. Dan will talk about that later. Yes, but it's ready to go. It's the way you want to sound. It's the way you sound, the way you want the client to hear you, all ready to go. Now, it has, like I said, that's the advantage. The advantage is it's done on the way in. The disadvantage is if your settings are in any way out of alignment or get messed up by one of the kids, or it gets bumped, or, the cleaning person knocks into it with the dust, the duster, whatever. If something gets out awry, unless you've got everything marked with a grease pencil or whiteout, which I recommend, your sound can get out of whack really quick. And if it's not, you can't undo it. So let's say you've recorded everything, you've packaged it up, and you've sent it off, and the client says, wow, it does not sound the way it should. It doesn't sound the way I'm used to. You're done. The only way you're going to fix this is record it again from scratch. Right. So that is the major disadvantage of processing pre or on the front end. The only people I ever recommended to are those that have to do stuff on ISDN. And that's still a very small percentage of us. But if you're doing ISDN and they expect you to be processing your audio at least somewhat before it's sent along, then you need to do processing on the front end. But
do we see a lot of that, George? I mean, where they're saying it has to be like deliverable ready when it gets through to their board, or do they just most of the time want a good flat sound that they can manipulate?
It's really weird. There's no consistency to that. I have some clients that they don't need to do a thing. It just needs to be a nice, raw, clean recording and done. And then I have other clients who tell me, oh, WWE needs to hear it this way. And if we change it too much, they're going to be unhappy with the sound. And I actually had that happen with a client named John Gary, who he said, make me sound better. So I did. And guess what happened? They didn't like what I did. And I had to go back and kind of figure out a happy medium between what I thought was not very good sounding and what they wanted. And, basically I had to find a happy medium and make everybody happy. And that's not easy, especially when the client is not, when I can't be at the client's house. And I'm having the client twist knobs. And in that case, it worked really well because I was on Source Connect with him. So I was hearing everything in full bandwidth. And when he made a tweak on the preamp, I could hear the change. But his preamp was outside the booth. So, lots of running back and forth. Not easy. So if you don't have to do that, then why not process post or just do it on the back end or in the computer, in the box? There's a lot of advantages. First of all, it's undoable. Second of all, it's savable as a preset. So you can have multiple versions of your settings and you can recall them at any time.
Yeah. Clarification, it's redoable, not undoable.
Well, it's undoable and it's redoable, right? You can, if it's not done right the first time, the processing, you can always fix it and undo and redo the broken, the improper processing. So that's key.
What we call non-destructive.
Yeah, it's generally non-destructive. Now that depends on the software you're using. If you're using a nice simple program like Twisted Wave, it's only non-destructive if you have a clean or a dry version saved to start with. Right. And I do recommend doing that. For everything but quick bang, just bang it out auditions where you've got a workflow and you don't need to go through a lot of steps, you kind of get it down. But for jobs, I definitely recommend recording it dry, saving an AIFF or WAV file that's, completely a raw file with no processing, and then doing your processing to that file. So if anything needs to change, you can always revisit the original file before you've processed it. And so, you record, you edit, you record, you save, you edit, you save, then you process and create your final deliverable file, which might be an MP3 or an AIFF. And then you've got two copies to work from. You've got the processed outputted file and you have the original file. So in that regard, if you do it that way, it is a quote unquote non-destructive process because you've got an original saved.
Right. The one way to do that is when you're recording, don't name the file initially. Like untitled file or something. Mm-hmm. And depending on the program, it will save it as that. So that becomes your work file. And then as soon as you bring it up, name it something else. Mm-hmm. So you have the saved original raw file, which is really the most valuable thing to have.
Right.
And that way you're always keeping the original file, which is pretty important. It starts to take up a little bit of space in your hard drive, but with terabyte hard drives, who cares these days? Yeah.
Actually, there's a question in the chat room I just glanced over, and somebody asked, who was it? Pat. Pat said, how long do you keep client files for? Well, that's actually a good question. Doesn't really apply to what we're talking about right now, but it is a good question. What do you have to say about that?
Well, I have a great answer for that because because I was having a little trouble with my iMac this week. Mm-hmm. It's been running like molasses. It's a 5-year-old iMac. Even Hondas start to slow down after a couple 100,000 miles.
Sure.
But so I've been backing everything up on a 2 terabyte external drive. And so I'm like, well, I'm going to have to reconfigure the computer or reload Lion. And I backed up took almost 13 hours to back it up because this thing is, like I said, it's running like molasses.
Right.
So, and everything is on there. Now, it's not the only backup I have. I've been backing stuff up and backing it up in various different places.
Right.
And I had it all backed up. I reloaded Lion. It still didn't work very well. And then the hard drive fell on the floor and it crashed.
Oh, yeah. That's easy to do, especially now all the hard drives are vertical. They have them standing on edge, so they're all that more likely to topple over.
Yeah. And I'm like, I don't want to topple this. Oh, crap.
Uh-huh.
And then it's like,
oh, God.
Crap. And we all know what that sound means.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, so it's important to back up. I think, cloud storage and some of these online things are probably a much smarter idea because you can't drop them.
Right. Yeah. There's a multi-million-dollar server, farm that's keeping your data probably spread out over multiple servers and all this kind of stuff. And, so far so good. I have not heard of anybody that's been using cloud storage that then has lost their data from because of a cloud storage failure. I mean, it happens. Of course it happens, but it's so incredibly rare. But I mean, how do you keep your files? Let's say you recorded a project, it's done, it's been delivered, you've been paid, it's ancient history. Do you keep those files on hand?
Absolutely, because there's profit in those files. Because you never know when a year later and a client calls us, well, our system crashed. Do you have those files?
Right.
As a matter of fact, I do. And the restore fee is,
Mm-hmm.
you know, everything is billable. We're like lawyers. And some of us are a little smarter. But yeah, you keep a backup of all your stuff because, you know, you're always looking to find good stuff for demos, or there might be something that'll be a good example for an audition for another job. So, I did something just like this, and here's an actual file from it. So it's a good habit to have, to keep a log and a library of all the stuff you've done.
Be organized.
Including your auditions.
Mm-hmm.
Just don't drop the hard drive you're saving it on.
Yeah. Well, it can't hurt to, you know, that's brilliant. I mean, some would say that's really shrewd, but I think it's actually very smart business sense. What if they had to pay you to re-record it? What would that cost them? You know, $200, $1,000?
It depends on what it is. You know,
exactly.
If it's 30 seconds, you know, I mean, you know, with the 30-second rate. If it's 2 hours, well, you know, I mean, you know, most of the time it's like, how much of an emergency is it? How soon do you need it? And how good a client are they? Mm-hmm. And, you know, all those things fit in. But I think everybody understands that.
Yeah. I mean, you know, you have to wear your business person's hat, but you're going to wear your customer service hat too. And you're going to decide, you know, is this a client who I really love and I'm going to bail them out because I just, you know, they always pay me on time. Right. They're always great to me. Then, you know, I'm going to help them out. Clients that give you a little more friction, kind of slow on the pay, you know, you might be a little more apt to want to, like, you know, milk them for a little bit, you know?
It's right.
Hey, you know, I don't think it's a bad idea at all. So I mean, there's iCloud, there's Dropbox. Dropbox is great because it's universal. Mac, PC, Android, almost any device works on Dropbox. I use SugarSync and Dropbox. SugarSync is what I use to synchronize all of my data. I'm sorry, all my documents for my business. Right. That stuff's all on SugarSync because it's a very automatic system, and it just shows up on every computer I need to use it on. It's very seamless. Dropbox is pretty awesome. You can set up folders for each of your clients. Right. Even I think you get 2 gigabytes for free. Is it, Dan?
Yep, you do.
And that should cover most everybody.
But anytime you sign a new client up, it's like, oh, you need to sign on to get the thing from the Dropbox. They give you another 250 megabytes.
Oh, that's true. If you refer somebody, that gives you more data. Yeah, so that's you're recruiting people, getting some more storage for it. It's brilliant too. iCloud is just not there yet. Maybe middle of next year, middle of this year. But man, they are so. It's just another not shining moment for Apple, the iCloud, because the system is so it's not pervasive yet. It's working great in certain things, not at all in other things. And other things, it's mysterious as to how it works. And I don't know. Have you played around with it much?
Well, for a file that's under 20 megabytes and you just drop it in the cloud and send the link to your client, I've never had any problems with it. It seems to work fine. You know, and syncing it up with iTunes, well, that's another deal, but we don't get paid to sync up stuff with iTunes. So let's just skip over that and let the people in Cupertino deal with that.
Yeah, I mean, I just hate that with iCloud. If you really want to be iCloud on everything, then everything has to be running Lion. Right. And everything has to be running the latest version of this and that. And sometimes, as we all know, running the latest of whatever is not always the best policy. And sometimes it just creates more work and more hassle. So, you know, I prefer using something that might be a little more open and that isn't so closed like the iCloud. But, you know, 6 months from now, I might change my mind when it really catches on.
Yeah. So are you finished with front end processing here? Because we got to sell some stuff.
That pretty much covers it.
Yeah. I mean, it's important, you know, now that you understand the difference between front end processing with all the rack mounted stuff and doing it on the back end with software. All the software we have today is powerful enough, probably even more so, to get the sound you want because you can dial in the sound afterwards to get it the way you want.
Yeah.
Only when you're doing something live on ISDN or Source Connect or something like that, where the client relies on you to do it that way, that's when you should do that.
And with Twisted Wave, we can save a preset for you. And I think other softwares can do this too. Save the preset files on our end. We can be your virtual engineer. then send you the preset and just load it up, and you're off to the races as though we were sitting right next to you. That's another huge advantage of it.
Yeah.
So,
right. And speaking of other huge advantages, do you have the you have the web store, the East West Audio Body Shop
I do.
store on the, because folks, you can still get anything you want from there with our logo on it.
That's right.
You know, you can get the hats. You know, Hanukkah was great because I just gave everybody, you know, all right, there's a, you know, the laptop cover, the T-shirt, sweatshirt, hoodie. What else did I give? You know, the coffee mug. How can you live without an East West Audio Body Shop coffee mug?
Tell me about it.
You know, I mean, it's like every morning when I reach into the cup, yes.
Actually, you know what? I have the travel mug, and it's actually much better than I expected. I thought it looks like it's a plastic, cheesy thing, you know, on the website. You can't really tell. But it's an actual stainless steel metal, you know, mug. It's made really well. And I've been really happy. I mean, I use it just as a day-to-day mug around the house. I think it's awesome. I'm showing it on the screen right now. Actually, the store is on screen.
Yeah. And so remember, Valentine's Day is coming up. So
you couldn't think of anything more romantic than,
you know, some people, it seems to be important to them.
How about the women's fitted spaghetti strap tank for that special lady?
All right.
That's right. Yes. Wear it in the bedroom.
That's right. You know. Mrs. Leonard loves hers.
That's awesome. Anyway,
yes, of course, I've lost her now. She doesn't watch our show anymore. She's now hooked on Once Upon a Time and Grimm and all these stupid things, or all these fantasy things.
Oh boy. Oh wow.
Not the right kinds of fantasies I'm talking about. Anyway, East West Audio Body Shop. What's the address for that so they can go there and order?
It is so easy. It's shop.
Voluminous amounts of this stuff.
Yes, it's shop.ewabs.com.
Would you throw that in the chat room so people can...
Shop.ewabs.com.
There we go.
That's an easy one to remember.
It is. It is. Well, it's 25 minutes after the hour, and we're back here on East West Audio Body Shop. I used to actually have to talk like that, and it's not easy to break out of it.
No kidding. Huh? That's what I keep running into with clients that, you know, have been in radio. You know, I can tell immediately the first time I hear their voice if they've been in radio in most cases, unless they've had, you know, a couple of years of coaching to coach that out of them. I mean, I understand now how challenging the two worlds are to separate. After I was on that show, Twert, this week in Radio Tech. And it was,
those
you know,
guys talk like that.
Yeah,
even Laporte talks like that.
Yeah. Well, he's a talent. He's a host. But, you know, unfortunately, it wasn't Leo's show. I'd love to be on his show. It was, but this show was about radio specifically. But, you know, we had 3 radio engineers on the show, and they were all listening to me really closely because they were surprised to see how different the world of recording voiceover was from the world of radio. I mean, it really was different. Right.
I think we're going to bring that up. I might be a good subject for FAFCon this year, too. I think that's something I think a couple of people want to talk about. So anyway, another thing I wanted to talk about tonight, because I have another package tonight. We want to talk about, everybody asks about this. When I'm coaching, when I'm consulting with people and helping them set up their studios, they go, well, can I just normalize it?
Right.
You know, and they get a little tiny squiggle of a waveform, and it's like, not necessarily. So it's now time. We've got Gabby Nistico be with us in just a couple of minutes. But right now, first I have to warn you, I shoot these sometimes at various parts of the day.
Drunk.
And no, I'm never drunk. Never,
just
not
kidding.
Once. My wife and I were just talking about that the other day, and it's like, you know, isn't it great? I don't drink at all.
Yeah, me neither.
You know, I keep telling her she needs to drink more, but the thing is that you don't want to be doing this type of stuff when you're normal. You don't want to normalize stuff that's recorded too low.
Right.
But the problem that happens when I record these is that, you know how some people get bedhead? See, I don't necessarily have that kind of a problem.
Not really.
I get bed face.
That face.
and unfortunately, as you watch this one, you'll all laugh at that, and then of course miss the incredibly important information I'm about to toss you about about normalization. My mustache appears to be signaling for a right-hand turn. So anyway, so roll that golden bean footage, and we'll be right back. So watch this on Normal. Okay, today I want to talk about normalization. Now, what is normalization? Normalization is something that makes everything louder. And I mean everything louder. It's different from compression, which just makes the loud stuff softer and the softer stuff louder. There's a big difference. So let me demonstrate. Let me show you how we do this with a recording. You hear that click? Pure music. Go ahead, try it a few more times. Solid, low U-factor windows like this let in the light, keep energy bills lower, and shut out the neighbor's noise, which is important stuff when it's nap time. Okay, that's me recording at my normal level. So if we highlight this and want to normalize it, and we can normalize it to, say, -1, and here's what it looks like normalized. But you really want to do your normalization after you do all your processing. And I'll explain that to you in a second. But let's listen to it just normalized. You hear that click? Pure music. Go ahead, try it a few more times. Solid, low U-factor windows like this let in the light, keep energy bills lower, and shut out the neighbor's noise, which is important stuff when it's nap time. So you see, it's louder, but it makes everything louder. So let's take it back to where it was originally, like this. And let's first get rid of the background noise, because what happens is it makes the background loud too, and we want to avoid that. So check the noise gate settings here. We'll explain noise gates another time, but suffice to say it's a better way to get rid of background noise. Now, let's listen to this and see what it sounds like without the background noise. You hear that click? Pure music. Go ahead, try it a few more times. Solid, low you hear that click? So we've removed any background noise, which was very minor in my studio. And now what we want to do is we want to do the processing that I do. I have a preset called Comp EQ, which is a compressor, which we'll talk about another time, and an equalization to take a little bit of the low end off my voice. And as you can see, it makes the hotter stuff a little quieter and the quieter stuff even with it. Let's give this a listen now. You hear that click? Pure music. Go ahead, try it a few more times. Solid, low U-factor windows like this let in the light, keep energy bills lower, and shut out the neighbor's noise, which is important stuff when it's nap time. And that's all the processing that I would do. I changed the equalization curve a little bit. I reduced everything so everything's even using compression. And now is when I would use normalization to get it up to, in my case, I like to use -1. Now, some people might think that's a little loud, and it looks loud, but it's not overmodulating. You hear that click? Pure music. Go ahead, try it a few more times. Solid, low U-factor windows like this let in the light, keep energy bills lower, and shut out the neighbor's noise, which is important stuff when it's nap time. So those of you who tend to record too low, again, you're going to make the background noise louder when you use normalization. So you want to get rid of it, and you want to then boost your signal up to as loud as you possibly can without overmodulating. That's normalization. So the bottom line is you want to do all of your processing first. You want to do your compression, your noise reduction, all these other things that you do, all your editing, you want to do that first. Your final product, if it's not up to -3 or -1, depending on what your preference is, then you use normalization. You also want to record at as full a volume as you can. And again, as you saw, it's not overmodulated when you normalize to -1 or to -3. It's loud, but it's really clear. And that's my tip for the week. And we're...
Congratulations. Actually, that was really good.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's, they're fun to do, and I want to make sure that we get out at least one good little tidbit of information to everybody every week. And because there's so many little fine points. And so I figure one little concept a week, and let's see if we can squeeze that into your heads with all the other stuff you're trying to jam into your head every week if you're learning how to run a home studio. Anyway, in just a minute, we've got our good friend Gabrielle Nistico joining us from Charlotte, North Carolina, from VoiceHunter. And so you're going to learn all about imaging work and all the great stuff that they do at VoiceHunter. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
El Dorado Recording Services.
Randy Thomas chiming in.
This is Alex Verdi.
Hi, this is Bill Ratner in Los Angeles.
Hi, this is Scott Rummel here in Yorba Linda, California.
Hi, my name is Rick Wasserman.
Hi, this is Tom Kane.
Hi, my name is Vanessa Marshall.
Hi, my name is Zurich.
Hi, I'm Mary McKittrick.
Hi, I'm Peter McHugh.
I was turned on to George by none other than Don LaFontaine, who always swore by his health.
George is absolutely awesome.
ISDN, Source Connect, Phone Patch, FTP, you name it, George has set it up.
It's really the best thing I've ever done for myself. I feel free, safe, fearless, like anything is possible in here.
Unless you like to look for opportunities to waste time, call George.
And he did all of that, long distance over the phone and the internet.
I'm very happy with George, and I cherish
I've got my travel kit, I got my Source Connect, I've got it all going on, thanks to you.
Thanks, George. You make it easy.
Is East West Audio Body Shop with Dan Leonard in the East and George Whittam in the West. Two guys I love spending Sunday nights with.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Wow. We love spending Sunday nights with you guys. So we're glad you're here with us tonight. And I'm even equally glad. I am thrilled to have one of my oldest friends in the voiceover on the internet business joining us from VoiceHunter in Charlotte, North Carolina, Gabrielle Nistico. Good evening, Gabby. Welcome to East West Audio Body Shop.
Hello, thank you. I'm excited to be here. Actually, George, you brought it up before, and it was absolutely news to my heart. I have my grease pencil with me.
You've got it ready to go.
This is the greatest thing ever. Long live the grease pencil, okay?
I need to start carrying them around in my bag just to hand out to people, actually.
Really?
Oh, swag. I got a swag idea. Thank you. I got to write that down.
See, I know. People do not understand the value of the grease pencil. It really is like the lifesaver in a studio.
Awesome.
I mean, they're not good for just, marking tape heads anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Or chewing on and eating, depending on.
That's true.
That's
true. Right. So anyway, Gabby, thanks for being with us tonight. I know we got a number of things to cover. One of the genres of our business, one that I've never really been able to break into, although I've never really concentrated on it. I mean, I've thought about it and I'm like, well, K98, how do these guys do this? VoiceHunter specializes, or at least you were for a good long time, and I know you still do, with imaging work. Yeah. Explain to people what imaging work, for those of you out there who've never even heard the term, and how one does it and how one can get into it, if they should.
Okay, it's a ton of fun. It's basically TV promo's little brother or sister. It's very much related. It is the radio industry's way to self-promote and to get messages out there that are pertinent to their listening audience. So whether it's a concert or an event or something that they have going on, and it's all these little messages that they intersperse throughout the programming, and usually it's in between songs, typically. It is the self-ID identifiers, etc., sweepers, liners. They go by a bunch of different names. It's a ton of fun. There's, much like promo, I mean, there's a certain amount of prestige that comes with them because you are the voice of a station.
That's right.
It's not quite as intense, though, and there's a little bit more opportunity because there's so many more radio stations out there than there are TV opportunities. It's a lot of fun, though. In terms of how to break into it, it's pretty straightforward. You have to know and understand at least the basic expectations that radio has, and you've got to know a good bit about radio formats, because that's really what it's all about. The format dictates the type of imaging and then the sound and the way the material is going to get put together. My best advice to people who want to do it is to get in touch with a local station, find out who their creative services director is. Creative services is sort of internal code word in radio for imaging. They give it a very nice fancy title. And find out who that person is and ask them if you can sit in with them for a day. Because the more you know and the more you understand about how imaging is put together and about the needs of those producers, the better a chance you have of booking that kind of work. Because really the buck does stop with those guys. And having a chance to shadow them for a day sort of gives you an opportunity to see firsthand what their challenges are, what they need, what they don't need, what they like, what they don't like about the talent they work with.
Right. Now, the technology for this has changed tremendously. It used to be guys that would do this, that if they had a home studio, it was done on tape, and then they'd have to make sure everything was done right, put it in different FedEx envelopes and toss it off to different places. Yeah. Now, of course, well, the internet has made our entire industry possible. How has that changed? I take it it's probably opened up lots more opportunities for people and makes it a little easier for people to do this type of work. What's the general way of people delivering their material for this?
It's pretty straightforward. I find that most stations anyway are really awesome about turnaround time. They're one of the few sets of clients where the turnaround is not immediate. So you can have anywhere from 24 hours to 3 days to get them what they need, which is great because you can just pop into the booth anytime you have to when you've got a free minute to get it done. In terms of shipment, most of them are perfectly happy with a high-quality MP3.
Yep.
So, yeah, stick it in email and send it off. I have 1 or 2 stations right now that are a little pickier, and they prefer to have waves. So, much like what you guys were talking about before, I'll either use Dropbox or I will use, oh darn, drawing a blank. Sometimes Mega Upload. I tend to like that service, and once in a blue moon, you send it.
Yeah, if you don't have to pay for it, why pay for it?
Yeah, exactly.
I had a question. Do you mind if we interrupt and just play a spot from somebody?
Yeah,
sure.
I just was on the website while you guys been talking, and I wanted to find one here's one from Pat Duke.
Duke.
And he's got 4 demos on here. I'm not sure which one of these really qualifies. He's got TV promo, animation, movie trailer, and commercial. Maybe that's not the best example. Let me find one that's more
TV promo. TV promo is a good example.
It's actually funny that you bring up Pat, because Pat's a VoiceHunter client, and the funny thing is we've actually been in plans and preparation to help him build an imaging demo for quite some time, but his schedule, especially with Swamp People, has been so nuts, he hasn't had time to do it.
Well, here's another one. This actor's name is Dave Garber, and he has a radio imaging. Let's try.
Drop the top and dust off your fuzzy dice. Saluting the early days of rock and roll.
Less conversation.
It's a cruising with K-Hits weekend. The laws of physics say that eventually gravity will slow everything down. Stop it. We say, to heck with that. 10 in a row of yesterday's best country. Heritage 101.
There you go.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sort of like a Casey Kasem on Downers.
Yeah, well, it's fun. And I mean, again, that's where formats kind of play a role. Dave Garber, I know Dave really well, Cowboy Dave. He's very fun, and in his sound and style and the type of work he normally does, oldies and classic rock and things in that vein are really perfect for him. Country is an obvious choice for him as well.
Yeah.
And that's really what a lot of it's about. I mean, talent nowadays, everybody's talking about signature sounds and niche and where do I fit in, what should I be doing? Imaging is very much a part of that. You've got to know what's right for you, what sound you're fitted for, and you embrace that and go with it and market to that.
Right.
And stations respond.
How does someone train for that sort of thing?
As far as I know, with the exception of, I think, some material that Dan O'Day was doing every now and again, I am the only imaging coach in the industry. So I offer training on a pretty regular basis. I always joke with people. I laugh. I literally wrote the book. I don't know if you guys can see it or not.
Yeah, we see it, sort of.
Yeah, we actually wrote the book on radio imaging, how to do it, what it is, how to understand it, how to negotiate for it. I find, interestingly enough, that one of the biggest challenges with imaging is not the performance side for most voice talent, it's the negotiating. They don't know how to negotiate an imaging contract because it's so specific, and they don't know the language that the stations are looking for. The joke right now, too, is that with radio having so much of a hand with conglomerates and companies like Clear Channel and CBS, who pretty much, they own everything, the joke is sort of, you want to make sure you have your own contract, because if they present the contract to you, you will not be happy with that. The outcome is not great. Those contracts are, of course, designed with their advantages in mind. You want to be the one to present something. So those are usually the areas where people need help. And then, of course, the marketing end. How do I find the stations? How do I impress them? What should my auditions sound like? And yeah, I work with folks in that arena quite regularly. And then typically what we do is plan and prep them for a demo and help them with that too.
Well,
I'm sorry, Gabby, tell us the name of the book real quick.
The book is called VOcareer.com's Guide to Breaking into Radio Imaging. And we actually did 2 years ago at Voice, my gosh, 4 years ago now. Holy cow, it's gone by so fast. In 2008, we did a session at Voice 2008 that was exactly this, on imaging, and we had it recorded, and we have a DVD of it as well that we usually send along with the book. We sort of do a 2-for pack.
I'm going to have to listen to that one.
Yeah, it's a ton of fun. For me anyway, it's my passion in the business. It's typically what I do. If anybody's interested, if you go to my website, which is voiceovervixen.com, you can see that my marketing package and really everything that I do, first and foremost, is geared right to radio stations. Mine's a little out there. It's a little crazy. It's kind of the wilder alter ego side of Gabby, and that's partially because of the work that I do for Active Rock and Urban and CHR. Again, my job is to fit the lifestyle of those stations and to help that buyer understand that I get it and I know what they do every day. So it's a little nuts, but it's fun.
Do you think that with the advent of internet radio stations, I mean, a lot of on-air stations have their own website and they can broadcast anywhere in the world? Because to me, it's important to get a Sabres game if I'm in Japan.
Sure.
But is there a lot more imaging opportunities because of the internet, because you've got online stations? Are you starting to see a real influx of that type of business?
Yeah, we've actually seen it for years. Europe is crazy. They're musically and
politically.
Style-wise, and when I talk about style, I mean the production value.
Yep.
They're about 10 years behind us. So
we know.
What was popular in the early part of the decade or the last decade is really where they're stuck right now, even the late 90s to some extent. And so that's indicative, too, of the type of vocal sound that they want. But Amsterdam, a huge buyer, any of the English-speaking European countries, they're big buyers of U.S. talent. And even some of the non-English-speaking countries, they just think it's cool and it's exotic, the same way we would hire someone with an Australian accent.
Right.
So we see a lot of that. We see South Africa, we see New Zealand a lot, and now Asia and the Middle East have started jumping on board. Wow. I know a good number of talent who are doing imaging for Saudi Arabia. We're seeing it in Turkey a lot. It's really wild. And yeah, the opportunities are opening up left and right.
Wow.
It's very cool. And most of these stations, they're really loyal to their voice talent. That's something I've always found. They're not looking for a one-off. They're not looking for a one-time thing. Because I have a lot of people ask me that. They'll say, oh, but I see it on a pay-to-play and it's $100 for a one-time job. That's not really indicative of what's going on. Most of these stations are at least a couple $1,000s a year on retainer, and many of them will keep you 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years. So it makes it worthwhile.
That'll pay for college.
Yeah.
Outstanding.
I wanted to ask questions from the chat room, actually,
Yeah,
if
go
we
for it,
have the
George.
time, Dan.
Go for it.
Cool.
Time? We're not waiting for the network here. Go ahead.
Exactly. I have to remember that. No, actually, one question that was really pertinent because it ties in exactly with our topic from the first half of the show is how many of the clients that the talent will be working with are going to expect something that's ready for air, pre-processed, pre-produced, or pre-processed is one thing, but pre-produced, being another thing. How much is that going around these days?
Very little. Typically speaking, most stations are prepared for and understand that the voice is a separate thing from the production. Many of them have a producer that's already locked and loaded to handle that aspect of things. And as a matter of fact, what's interesting is that the final decision in selecting talent usually has to roll through that person. If they say that you don't understand the technicalities of imaging or you're not presenting the file in the right way, that'll put the kibosh on the whole thing.
Right.
So really, really important. Now, there are some stations who, yes, they'll inquire. They'll say, can you also fully produce? Are you able to do this? The thing I tell people, it's simple. If you've never done it before, don't even attempt. It's extremely intricate. You've really got to know your way around a DAW for this. Mm-hmm. It's major multi-track editing, and it will make your head spin. So the minute you make the decision to get into something like imaging, go make friends with some producers. Go make friends with some guys who do create imaging day in and day out and ask them. Just say, hey, if I have a station come up and they want full production, what would you charge me to do it? And how can we package this together and mark it up and everybody makes money?
Right. And good to talk to the production director at your local big station and stuff like that. Buy them lunch.
Yep.
And,
or her.
Or her, yes. And
they work in radio. They'll take a hot dog and coffee. They're good. They're
right. and they usually have trade too. So it's good to hear that this is growing. But your business, VoiceHunter itself is changing a little bit this year, isn't it? What kind of changes are you going through? What sort of things can you tell us about?
Absolutely. VoiceHunter still, same as ever before, very committed to imaging, very committed to TV promo. Those are our roots. So it's not something we're going to abandon. The biggest differences for us is that in 2012, we made it a completely free service. Before 2012, VoiceHunter was a marketing company that did come with an upfront cost because we would market the talent who were with us and then ultimately get them casting opportunities. Now, 2012 totally changed, no upfront fees of any kind anymore. The reason we've done this is because we've made it even more exclusive. Basically now, to list with VoiceHunter, it's much more like the criteria of something like VoiceBank. You have to be on a major agent's roster. You have to already be working with a major agency and or you have to be a celebrity level talent. That's basically the world we've moved into. 2011 was real interesting for us. We did a variety of celebrity castings, and it opened up a whole new doorway for us, really. So very exciting. Now, on the other hand of things, we also have VO Career, which marketing, training, talent services, all of that. That's where we do all the imaging training. But what's happening there now is we've got one very specific focus for talent, which is to help you get on an agent's roster and to help you actually start becoming agent ready if you aren't. And if you are, then helping you to expand and get with more agents, because let's face it, more agents is never a bad thing.
That's right. That's right. So we want to challenge you here for a second, Gabby.
Sure.
Give us your 30-second pitch to a celebrity to be working with you.
Oh, no. See, that's the irony of it. We don't even have to do that.
Oh, okay.
The way it typically goes is pretty straightforward. If clients will contact VoiceHunter the same way they always have, because it's very boutique. We work one-on-one with all the clients, and they'll say, listen, we've got this kind of budget. We're in the six-figure mark, and we want to know if we can get Juliana Margulies or Dean Winters or whomever they mention. And because for so many years now, we've had great relationships with William Morris and SBV and TGMD and DPN and all these other guys, we just call them up. And we've been doing it for years. Honestly, we probably in any given calendar year have had a half a dozen celebrity requests. The thing is, they don't usually pan out. There's a lot of time involved in those castings. There's a lot of negotiations. It just doesn't always happen, but we've always said, hey, we'll try. It can't hurt. 2011, it started landing. We don't know if the celebrities have just become a little bit more accepting of voice work, and they've become a little bit easier in terms of their negotiations. Maybe their agents have become a little bit more reasonable in that regard, but we started booking them. And so really it's all up to the agent. We don't meet the celebrity until the day of the session.
Really?
That's it. Well, yeah, one of our casting directors is walking in to facilitate the process and to act as a liaison for the client, and that's about it. Right. We had a session with Leonard Nimoy 2 weeks ago in that same fashion. Yeah, exactly.
I've met Leonard Nimoy. It's
good old Spock.
Fascinating guy.
Yeah, it's fun stuff, but yeah, it's all about the agent relationships. That's what allows the celebrity bookings to happen.
Wow. So they want to work with known quantities, in other words.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But people have to start somewhere. And, if that means you're going to do imaging for a station in Podunk, then you're going to do that. But, eventually someone's going to hear you. Because I remember from my radio days, station manager and program director telling me constantly, never swear, be your best. You never know who's listening.
Yeah,
exactly.
And I think that's probably the case with imaging. And I'm sure a lot of people are discovered and they say, hey, you'd probably be very good at doing imaging work. And probably the smartest decision they ever made, because they're going to make a whole heck of a lot more money than they were spinning records back then.
Yeah.
Well, and a lot of talent who are really well known in our industry. Joe Cipriano, Randy Thomas, a lot of folks at their level. I think Bo Weaver, Cam Brainerd, these guys all started in radio in one shape or form or another. And for them, I know for Randy and Joe specifically, imaging was a stepping stone for them. They were imaging long before they were doing promo work. And imaging is the gateway drug, It does lead to promo work.
How about sound-alikes? What's the deal with sound-alikes?
For celebrity sound-alikes, for imaging?
Yeah.
There's not a whole lot of it. I find that it's always really funny. The sound-alikes are usually things that morning shows are concocting and that actual show producers are using. Imaging, rarely. Typically, what I do see is that when a talent is really skilled with character, or if they do a certain impression, or if they just have a lot of versatility to their voice, and you make that clear to your stations up front, especially in the audition, if you can find a way to sneak that in there, then they will write copy specifically to your strengths. And they will use that and they will exploit that. It's not necessarily impressions, but it gives you a chance to really show off more of what you can do.
So Morgan Freeman.
You're watching East West Audio Body Shop with Dan Leonard in the East and George Whittam in the West. They're nice guys, but every time I'm there, they never let me make water. So I'm going to go make water right now. I'm a grown man.
Not a lot of call for that stuff, huh?
Yeah.
It's so awesome.
Larry Davis.
So, Gabby, once again, if people want to get a hold of you, where's the website and the name of the book and all this other stuff that I want you to shamelessly promote?
Okay, let's do it all. You've got voicehunter.com. You have my email address there. It's gabby@voicehunter.com. Couldn't be any easier. Gabby with 2 B's, Gabby. You also have vocareer.com. Career, singular, not plural, because everybody gets that confused. Email there is gabby@vocareer. And then you have my own website, voiceovervixen.com. So you can use any of the three to get in touch with me. The books there are two that are of the most importance. VO 101 for those who are just starting out in the industry. It is VO Career's guide to the basics, everything you need to know to start a career in voiceovers. And then, of course, the one we talked about before, which is the guide to breaking into radio imaging. Both of them can be purchased on VO Career's website.
Well done.
All right.
Thank you.
This woman is a professional, but do try this at home.
This is a lot of fun. Thank you guys so much.
Oh, our pleasure. And thanks for being a good friend, and thanks for being with us this week. And thank you for all this fascinating information. This is an area I think that a lot of people don't even think about, but now that they're becoming a little bit more proficient with their home studio, it might be something that I might want to take a stab at.
Absolutely. And, real quick, I'll tell you probably the one reason I think imaging gets overlooked the most, and it is always something I try to bring to people's attention. AFTRA doesn't recognize imaging. The union completely overlooks it. It's not mandated. So because it doesn't have a scale. Yeah, I know. We've been waiting for the other shoe to drop for years, so we're not worried about it at this point. Yeah. They don't really recognize it. So a lot of people don't think about it because there's no scale rate for it. There's nothing that they can look to in the union guide to get a feel for what it is or where they should be charging. But that's actually not a terrible thing. It means we're all open to it. We're all able to accept this kind of work. We're able to go after it. So, yeah.
Great. Well, Gabby, thanks for being with us tonight.
Thank you, Dan. Thanks, George.
Thanks, Gabby.
We'll see you guys soon.
All righty. Well, we've got Bad Audio of the Week still coming up, and we've got all sorts of other stuff. A great announcement for our show next week. So stay tuned. We'll be right back after this.
This is East West Audio Body Shop with Dan Leonard in the East and George Whittam in the West. Now back to two characters that didn't have anything else better to do, Dan and George.
Yeah. And apparently neither did any of you. And we're thrilled that you're with us tonight.
Yeah, definitely.
As we carry on here, we've got more great guests coming up in a couple of weeks, and but it was great having Gabby on. I've had some very long conversations with her, having been, being a former radio person. A reformed radio person.
A recovering radio person.
I think a lot of us refer to us as. She is a fountain of knowledge, and she really knows her stuff with this particular area. As she said, she's literally written the book, so you might want to examine that. And speaking of examining, I think it's time for us to examine this week's Bad Audio of the Week. You got that all racked up there, George?
Let's see. Yeah, I've got one here. This, is one of the more, I think, subtle ones. But I think those of you who, have done a lot of this will hear some of the things I'd like to change if it was me. So take a listen to this one. That good, huh?
There's a real problem there. It's called keying the mic.
What's one of the quickest ways to find yourself out of business? For anyone who owns or operates a facility that stores, handles, or processes regulated chemicals, it's being out of compliance with the EPA or OSHA.
It's a shorty.
A little overmodulated, but then again, it just might be my earpiece.
Yeah, it's hard to tell through the monitor over Skype for sure. Yeah, to me, just, he sounds like a radio announcer because he's using a radio mic.
That's using a dynamic mic.
Yeah, I happen to know that he is using. I think he was using an SM7 on that.
All right,
and
which is a great mic. I mean,
yeah, don't get me wrong. A lot of people
swear by the SM7 and the SM7B, which are standard broadcast mics, along with Shure RE20s.
Yeah.
But they're dynamic mics, and you have to talk into them like that close in order for them to work properly.
Yeah, you have to be right on them, and they have a little bit too much proximity effect as a result. And it's a lot of mid to bottom end and not a whole lot of top end sizzle, So, in that case, he's someone that just started working with me, and I recommended that we start out at least by making an EQ or, some software presets to kind of correct that. And, it's just one of those things where he could probably get away with that, and many clients would probably be okay with what he's doing. But, if you really want to stand out and sound like you're ready for prime time, you may want to do something. I played around with it real quickly and just sort of made an alt version of it with some processing. Let me see what you guys think of this.
Give this a listen.
What's one of the quickest ways to find yourself out of business? For anyone who owns or operates a facility that stores, handles, or processes regulated chemicals, it's being out of compliance with the EPA or OSHA.
So, now it kind of chumps out a little bit more. It's more clarity. Took out some of the bottom end.
You took out a little bit of the low end, and it's right. And it bounces out a little bit more, and it's clarity is what it's all about.
Clarity.
Kids. It's not about how loud. Well, as we talked about earlier, it's important to be loud, but that loudness needs to translate to clarity.
Yeah.
So you hear every word and you hear it properly, not colored. So it's more, more deep. There's no reason to overemphasize your voice to accentuate it. What you want is your voice clear so that people hear it. And that means not overmodulating, because then they're going to go, this guy really sucks.
Yeah. Another thing that people get confused about is say, well, I have a deep voice, so I need a microphone that can really pick up my deep bottom end.
Right.
Well, actually, it's kind of counterintuitive. If you have a super deep, boomy voice and your room is also boomy, then you need a mic that's the opposite. So it de-emphasizes all that boominess and then brightens up the mid-top end. If you're a lady talent and you've got a thin or squeaky voice, maybe some men talent have the same problem, then you may benefit from a large diaphragm condenser or some other, maybe even a possibly a dynamic or a ribbon microphone even, to kind of give you back what you're missing. So the mic needs to complement your voice.
Yeah. Ribbons are a whole nother discussion. But
I think we'll talk about that on another show.
I think we should. Everybody's talking about how ribbon microphones are back. Well, they're very, very specific use items. So,
I think so.
And you do need to know how to use them. But and the thing about a ribbon mic is that they're a standoff mic. They're not a proximity effect mic. And
generally, there's only one, and it's called the lip mic.
Right.
And I happen to have one sitting around, which I'll show you. That's the only ribbon mic designed to be close to the mouth.
Yeah.
Should we show some pictures?
We should. Do we have
John Taylor's?
John Taylor sent us pictures of his new studio and home in Massachusetts. He's in Cape Cod, I believe,
That's
or
right.
Hyannisport or something like that.
Yeah.
Let's take a look and see what he's
cool. Let me
sent us here.
slide it up onto the camera here and make sure that we can see the whole thing.
Yeah, he sent us that picture, and my immediate thought was, how does that affect your acoustics?
Well, it can't hurt. I mean, as long as it's not a raging river, having a little bit of, just soft background hiss outside the window ain't such a bad thing. So we'll go to the next shot. So that's the view, I think, from his patio or from his sliding glass door there.
Glass, yeah.
Then you've got the reverse of that, looking into John's new digs. And he's still got his whisper room, and he's got a desk arrangement out here that looks like a pretty cool desk. It's like that's a weird desk. It's got like a section that extends out.
Yep.
Maybe that's one of those desks where it can like fully collapse in and you can hide everything or something.
Right.
I don't know. That's pretty cool looking.
All right, let's look at some of his equipment here now.
And then we have another sort of looking out the window now where he was before. Now you can see the business end of the desk. Dual monitors, his printer, his preamp, processor, all that good stuff.
Also, the East West Audio Body Shop logo, prominently displayed there.
John, you're the man.
He is.
Time to get him back on again, don't you think, you guys? We miss John. And then this is the last shot here. This is a shot inside the booth, so you can see his little accent lighting. I think it looks like Christmas lights.
I think it's just Christmas lights.
Yeah, he's got it very, very well acoustically dampened with RLX. Bass trapping, all sorts of stuff, which these whisper rooms really do need quite a bit of treatment. And then he's got a cool looking like bar stool from, it looks like it's from a 50s restaurant.
And a 416.
And a 416, John's weapon of choice. So there you have it. There's John's studio. Thanks, John.
Yeah. So if you like your studio and you think you've got a really cool looking studio, we want to see it. We want to show it to everybody because you want to show it to everybody. As we like to joke about, you see this end of my studio, you don't want to see over here. And as George says, you don't really want to see where the sausage is made. We want to see the shots here. So take pictures of your studio. If it's unique, if you think it's cool,
even if
we want to put it here.
Even if you think it's ordinary, other people may find that it's very interesting. Even if it's funky, if it looks like it was hacked together with blankets and stuff, just to see that this is what it takes to create a professional voiceover. It doesn't require, commercially available materials necessarily. And, share it. We'd all love to see it. And everybody will learn something from it.
Yeah. Well, look what Mark was telling us a couple of weeks ago about how he spent 3 years in the closet making network quality stuff out of there. It's all how you do it, and it doesn't matter what it looks like because nobody sees it on the radio or on the internet or anything like that. But we want to see it because we want to share.
Yes.
Anyway, well, that's going to do it for this week. Next week, you do not want to miss our show, no matter what. We have Scott Brick will be our special guest next week.
That's huge.
The king, the absolute monarch of audiobooks. So we talked about imaging this week. Audiobooks is huge. And I know a lot of you are into doing audiobooks. Scott is the man, and he was thrilled to say, I want to be on your show. I guess we've arrived.
Yay.
Anyway,
we're going to get some other great voice acting names and some more names you're familiar with on this year. And we'd like to get some more ladies on the show. So we're so glad we got Gabrielle on. And so we're going to look for some more great talent to guest on the show too. So
absolutely.
I think I've got a little clip to go out on, something totally non sequitur. This is from earlier today, actually about an hour and a half before we went live. I was out with Ella on the bike, and we ran across this. Take a look. He's swinging on rings. See him? Look at him watch. Woo! Just a typical day at Muscle Beach. Not. What do you think of that, Ella? Pretty cool, huh? Yeah. Yeah, so you never know. You never know what you're going to run into on. That's the Santa Monica Muscle Beach, which is the original Muscle Beach before it went down to Venice. But the OVO show, which is the touring the Cirque du Soleil,
right,
is in Santa Monica. I think it opens on the 20th. And so you go out there, you go to Muscle Beach, and they're all the acrobats from the show, just exercising, having fun. There was a lot more going on. There was tightrope walking, there was the acrobats doing lifts and all sorts of stuff. And you never know what you're going to run into. So when I saw that, I was like, that guy is not just your typical dude walking down and working out at the beach. These guys are definitely from the show. So I thought that was fun. I wanted to share that with everybody.
That was definitely a set of pecs. And it looked nice and warm and pleasant to be in California. 11 degrees here in Buffalo. I can just imagine what you guys up in Toronto are going through right now, too. It's winter finally decided to arrive here in Western New York and the Northeast, but apparently not in California. George, a pleasure as always.
You too, Dave.
And we will see everybody next week. Scott Brick, our special guest. I'm Dan Leonard here in the East.
I'm George Whittam here in the West.
Are you sure? And together we are
East-West Audio Body Shop.
You have yourselves a great week. We'll see you next Sunday night. Take care, everybody.
Good night.